on this Thursday where President Trump and Z got on the phone together. This whipsaw Thursday ahead of tomorrow's non-farm payrolls. This Thursday, where Bitcoin right over here is testing an important support level. And if it does not hold, well, we're going to expect obviously a nice little breakdown. What are we targeting on that breakdown? Let me just go ahead and just put in, we have over here the pocket, right? The pocket's coming off of this support and this area of support over here. If it's a very strong market, we probably find out that we are able to settle into this resistance right of just above the psychological 100,000. But I'm putting it back down into the pocket of support and just leaving it at this area. And I'm not a head and shoulders type guy. But if that was a head and shoulders, you could see that the expected move would be right down around just into 97, $98,000. We got a bit of a whipsaw over here. Daniel, Simon, Gemma, everyone, grateful for y'all being here together as we get ready to do what we do best, and that is go ahead and keep our heads down, grind hard, put the work in, and do our best to stay on the right side across markets. Ace, is China gonna fold? I think that the reason we're seeing today the phone call take place and between China and the United States is Trump trying to make the point that, hey, listen, this chart's right, imports from China plunging back to 2020 levels during the global lockdowns. And this might be the only leverage that Trump has. Obviously, people looking at the situation are saying the president doesn't even get to dictate what happens in that country. So the United States, it seems to me, is negotiating from a little bit of a weaker standpoint. It seems to me that China was holding back some of those precious rare earth materials, and that's what has caused Trump to reach out to China. President Xi, this is like um what we're seeing from China directly after the phone call. And Xi is saying the US should remove the negative measures on China. The US and China should reduce their misunderstandings. US and China should increase cooperation on economy and trade. And they both need each other. Xi tells Trump China implemented the Geneva Agreement. I'm not sure exactly the details on that or the significance of that, and that ultimately they agreed to a new round of talks. Trump's side is, Trump always coming off, and the world could be burning around him, and he'd be all positive about it. As long as he's president, and he's saying that the talks went very well. The positive conclusion for both countries. This is what the US was looking for, I do believe. There should no longer be any questions respecting the complexity of rare earth products. And you saw that going back over the last week or so, the administration was like, China's not honoring their agreement when they went ahead and reduced the amount of tariffs and the pause. And part of that was that the China needs to, obviously, what the US really needs is those rare earth materials. They were probably holding back. They're going to meet again shortly, and the conversation was focused almost entirely on trade. Um, what does that mean going forward? Right? Markets' initial reaction was clearly, we like to. By the way, markets were under pressure this morning prior to the conversation. We saw that unemployment claims continue to rise, albeit very, very slow. The cracks are widening in the job market. Tomorrow's non-farm payroll, I think, is going to be a big deal. The bar is set low. A print under 100,000, and then all eyes will be on Jerome. Will bad news be good news in so much as that bad news markets then pricing in higher and more rapid pace of cuts? Or will bad news be bad news? Because once the market that realizes that, if indeed the job market's going south, and if indeed the United States is headed towards a slowdown, by slowdown I mean recession, and if that's happening, cuts are not really going to play a big role in that whatsoever. It's when the cuts begin rapid in rapid succession is when things are going from bad to worse. The tariffs were initially ruled illegally. That's being appealed right now. And why it's being appealed, the appeals court ruled that the tariffs stand throughout their process. So tariffs were ruled illegal. Then the appeals court is obviously taking a look at that. Ultimately, this could end up at the Supreme Court, and that's where we are today. So Bitcoin right now is flirting with that very, very important structural support level. And markets seem to be going from initial reaction of, okay, this is great that both the United States and China are talking and probably looking towards progress. But then at the same time, and perhaps, and this is just pure conjuncture, maybe what they're saying is, or realizing, well, this is going to be a process, and while the process takes place, damage is being done, and that's potentially what the market is beginning to price in right now, or maybe markets like, okay, that's great, we've got that out of the way, but that's there's no near term clarity or resolution, and tomorrow is non-farm payroll coming out of the US, and a lot of people might be bracing here for a bad number, as so far this week that's the indication and direction that we've had. Now, who knows? We'll figure it out. We'll find out. Let's move over and just begin here today with what's going on here in gold. And one of the I think it's very important to point out, if you look at what the reaction was on gold as soon as Trump and Z were on the phone together, gold went from, you know, breaking it back out over here, taking out that breakout. Let me just, this is not the gold chart that I want, but it's the gold chart that we got. So that's what I'm looking at. And you see the breakout, right? Came in for a very healthy retest and then was resuming upwards. And then the thing is when you look at this chart, this is really good for gold, right? Why is this good for gold? Well, if the US is not trading with China, China has less and less and less needs for US treasuries. And therefore, they have, hey, we'll keep stacking gold. It's very obviously beneficial for when you see that lack of demand for US treasuries. Gold has been the major beneficiary of this current situation that we're in. And when if they were going to go ahead and come to some type of agreement, I think it's a bit of a tell that that is going to be negative for gold. Now, I just want to be very clear, and I don't think, and it's coming back over here to March 2023. Look at this chart. Look at this beauty of a move. This is when we called the mega move out of the cup and handle. Let me just like, this is when we brought our attention to the video was March 2023. Gold is set to enter into a super cycle. It's not stopping at $2,500. I'll see you at 5,000. Now, I didn't think personally that we would be here at 3,300 so quickly, but we're not at 5,000. And I don't even think that this story, even if we were to see gold enter into what is a long time coming consolidation, which I thought was already underway, by the way. Um, Point being is that this bull market, this secular bull market in gold, why it is in dire need of a pause. It's still got a lot of time to go before we start seeing and or looking for an end. This is just like why we're here and just drawing this like simple trend line. 5K when, right? When and like Justin, 5K we reevaluate. I'm not saying this thing is peaking at 5K, and I'm also not saying that it's written in the stars that it's going to 5K. That was the analysis given back a couple of years ago in 2023 on the breakout of the cup and handle. And it might go much, much, much higher. Ultimately, it's going to go higher than that. Um, but when I'm more concerned about breakdowns, invalidations, and then I'm also more concerned about whenever we get to the point in time when I'm actually looking for this move to end. And you could see that I was a little early. I started as the Fed began raising rates, and this is all the way back a year earlier than the breakout. I was thinking that this is the time for people to be really interested into gold. And this is kind of neat because now we have macro NTA. And there are a lot of fundamental analysts out there who their market timing is just so poor. You have to wait until the fundamentals and the technicals align. That's really when the magic happens. And this is a perfect example. Fundamentals suggest as the Fed begins raising rates, the economy's headed towards ultimately a slowdown. That's the turning of the Fed cycle. Obviously, that could take some time. The one thing that I learned from this particular situation was that inflation really matters. And we were looking at inflation still very, very elevated when the Fed began hiking rates. It wasn't until we started seeing not only it wasn't until we saw the deflationary forces really begin to turn, which was in the fall of 2022, that then we saw gold put in its bottom and really begin its run. And that's the best part is that going forward, the next time, it will be a next time. It's cycle after cycle. And we're going to be here for a long time. We're just getting started. The next time we run into a similar situation, it's like building blocks. We keep each day putting these incremental gains on our side. We become sharper and sharper. All those around us become sharper and sharper. And then we have the tools to really navigate. We were talking about this earlier. A lot of people looking at the real yield dynamic. Luke, aka Lucastus, bringing up that, well, we were talking about this a year ago, and I was pointing out to Luke, well, we're normally early on spotting trends, but I think we're going to learn to understand the ramifications, the long-term ramifications in real time a lot better. We're headed towards summer sessions right now, and I remember the summer of 2022, we were talking about yields, and you guys all remember the most important trend line in crypto that we had in 2021, summer of 2022. I was like, this is the most important trend line in the 10-year. But even though I understood that we were in a pullback and that we were about to break out towards the upside, I didn't understand the greater ramifications. I did at the time. So going forward, sharper and sharper. So Justin, sorry, back to when 5K. I'm looking for the peak of this current bull market in gold. I am looking for. It doesn't mean that's what's going to happen, and that at any point in time, we always reserve the right, depending on the technicals, to have to pivot. If we get some critical breakdowns, we have to respect price above all. But what I'm looking for and how long this carries, and I said we'll reevaluate at F5, and that might be 4,700, and then in that area, and we might say, well, this thing has still got a long ways to go. One of the markers that I'm looking for, though, is the next time the Fed is forced to reinflate the system. Shortly thereafter is when I expect gold to peak. It's at that time I also expect for silver to really run against gold. And it's at that time that a lot of money is going to start going into more attractive growth investments. And at that point in time, gold is gonna, I believe that's when the cycle is going to be peaking out. If you look in the last time we saw the reinflation was March 2020, and you can see that gold peaked shortly thereafter. It's after the reinflation, then we're going to be focused on what a potential exit looks like. Silver over here was trading at a very healthy or close to it. The high today, $36 an ounce. The last time it traded at $36 an ounce was all the way at the high over here in October. Is not even close. You have to go back to February of 2012, the last time that silver was trading at 36. Couple of things that I want to go ahead and take a look at with you. And that's, let me just go ahead and zoom in over here and show you that breakout from a different angle. And it looks like to me, you can see, first of all, the liquidity grab. I can't highlight it for you because do you see that highlight actually? No, you can't see that. I'll get the image over it. But if you look at the trend line breakdown, you can see that liquidity grab, and then you see the breakout now to the upside highlighted in red, and it looks like a very powerful pattern. If you look at the weekly over here for a little bit more perspective, it looks like that this move really, a lot of people don't believe it. And it's going back to March 2023 when gold was breaking out of the cup and handle. So many people were in disbelief because the thing had been consolidating for so long and so many times had been rejected that most people thought it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. And then here we are today. You could see that gold continues to run strongly against silver, but it looks like that even if silver were to catch up a little bit to gold, there's a lot of room here for silver to make a pretty strong move right now. Now, I don't know if this is correct or not. My own belief is that probably silver right now is on its way towards working towards $50. I think it might take some time in order for it to make the breakout for $50. My own understanding, and we took a long and strong look at this, when silver really outperforms gold, and I'm saying right now, maybe the potential is setting up where silver makes a little bit of a chase against gold and makes back some progress. But when you see the Fed, that inflection point, when they come in and reinflate the system, that's when silver runs. And that's when things like Ethereum, right? Remember Ethereum was running so hard at that particular point versus Bitcoin. That's when you start seeing these more speculative instruments gaining a lot more liquidity into them because of their lower market caps. They really have the pace to put on some heat at that particular point. I want to go ahead and take a look at some other things. This is the AI narrative coming back into play. I mean, did you see there's a on YouTube on the Bloomberg channel? I don't know what it is. Bloomberg reports. If you search Bloomberg Stargate, and they're talking about in Texas the massive project underway for what is it? Is it a $500 billion data center being built out? It's a really good one to watch over here. And right now we're seeing if indeed AI I mean AI is not, I don't know if it's a narrative, it's real, right? The amount of infrastructure being built is real. The amount of energy, nuclear once again is becoming favorable inside the United States because they have to power these data centers. This is real. It's not really like a narrative like Bitcoin's an inflation hedge, but when inflation's high, Bitcoin won't perform well. Anyway, I don't want to get into that. Um, there's so many ways to buy silver, and there's so many things to discuss in so much as, for example, you have, right? You have paper and you have physical. Since you guys all understand Bitcoin so well, it's very easy for you to understand a lot of the dynamics of metal as well. What does that mean? Well, not your keys, not your coin. If you don't hold the physical, that's not yours, right? But where are you going to store it? If you store it in a vault, if you own the physical and store it in a vault, you also don't own it if you don't own it, right? And same thing with where you're going to store that at home. That's extremely dangerous as well. So just as much as with with first taking the step of owning Bitcoin and then learning how to store it and really game playing out all the potential risks. And it's you have to do the same with precious metals. There's nothing easy about that. Now with paper and the amount of leverage that's involved, it's during bull markets, it could be very attractive or I suppose also very dangerous as well. It depends on how you look at that. But for me, it would be trading in the futures markets. For other people, it could be looking at different ETFs for position. Again, understand the difference between paper and physical, how you store it. If you're looking to, for example, purchase physical silver, you can look at this website called APMEX, APMEX.com. If you're over in the US, start there. Take a look at what type of premium over spot price they're offering. Go ahead and do some searches. Ask a LLM. Ask a LLM what are some options and go ahead and to look into them. Yeah, much like miners a tough one. If you time miners right, there's massive opportunity. Obviously, people have gotten hurt by gold miners significantly. People have gotten hurt by Bitcoin miners. So miners are highly leveraged plays that very tough to time. Don't fall in love. And again, my own belief is that when silver's time to really, really run, well, that's just not yet. And once we see the Fed have to come in and try to inflate the system, or I'd say try, well, I laugh. What diminishing returns on what it takes to keep the dollar debt based system going. Don't forget, it was $850 billion in 2008. No, it wasn't 850. But someone correct me. I think it was 700. I thought it was two packages of $350 billion released, one under George Bush Jr., the other under Obama. I forget. Let's just call it 800 billion, you know. And back in 2020, 12 years later, no, no, no. It was 4.1 billion, five times the size, plus another 1.2, sorry, trillion, 4.1 trillion, plus another 2.4 trillion over the next 2 years. Next time you've heard the big print. That's just a layup. Eventually, they're going to have to go ahead and inflate the system. Eventually, Janet Yellen, she told us there would never be another crisis in our lifetime. Obviously, that is ridiculous. There are going to be many more crises in our lifetime as we enter into this monetary reset, shorter, sharper, more violent cycles. The next time they reflate, that will be the big print up until the time after that. All right. The Stargate video is what I thought it was wonderful. Highly recommend that one. Really, really good. There was another chart over here I wanted to show you why we're looking at that, and that was commercials, non-commercials, right? So these are speculators, these are hedge funds, and people are not long silver in relation to price. So there's a lot of room here for potential upside on silver as the speculative portion of the move is not yet taken place. Now, we were just looking at the move on gold, and we were looking at what happened today with the conversation between Z and Trump. And that says to me, if we do see, remember, we heard 90 trade deals in 90 days. Whether or not that's going to happen, it doesn't look like it's going to happen now. But if we were to see a lot of trade deals by, what is the deadline here? July 7th. Don't quote me on that, but early July is when we have the deadline now. And today's the deadline for countries to get into the United States, what they're willing to what they're well, like, get your agreements in, and our country's going to respond to that. If they don't, the U.S. Commerce Secretary is going to be sending out to those countries what the U.S.'s terms are. And that's nothing more than another negotiation tactic to get them to the table. But if we do receive a plethora of trade deals, I think that gold and silver, they're going to move in towards a healthy consolidation. This is the chart of a monthly of gold, and look at the RSI. It's enormously overbought. I don't expect this to continue at this pace. By the way, what's kind of neat, if you just pull up gold on an RSI on the monthly, and then you look when it peaks, it hasn't peaked yet. When it does eventually peak, and then you go ahead and you look at the highest price point, look what happens when price is able to finally consolidate, break out above. That's when the next leg happens. Same thing over here. I'm going to the RSI, the high point, the highest price point. As it pulls back, it's not until price takes out that high, the next leg occurs. What about over here? Well, here's the high. Price never takes out that high, right? Went from consolidation to major breakdown. Same thing over here. RSI is oversold. Consolidation finally breaks out. Next leg up. Look over here. You could say that, well, this was kind of a pretty uh, retrospect right now, it looks like a massive consolidation. In real time, that's a big drawdown over here from 2000 down to 40% drawdown on gold during the consolidation. But once price came above right over here, that's when the next leg occurs up. So what I'm getting at is whenever we cool off, and if that's triggered, dude, what you why haven't you hit the like button? You go ahead and smash the like button if you're in here today, enjoying some CTM, TA, and macro. Eventually, when we cool off, and likely will be triggered by some type of resolutions with trade deals, watch for the consolidation to occur. And eventually, when price breaks back up above it, that looks like when the next leg will be coming up. What else we got? We were looking at commercials, CTA positioning. So you can see CTAs in green over here are lagging as well. And that also shows that, wait, the current underlyings of this silver move, they actually look quite bullish. Seasonalities right now. Look at that. Almost exactly where silver began its run. And you could see that all the way through the summer and into mid-September, very bullish time seasonality wise for silver as well. Platinum. A lot of people are also watching platinum here on the run. This is obviously ETH. Love it. Let's take the ETH. Let's go to ETH next. Let's finish up here with platinum, and then we'll move over and take a look at what's ETH doing. ETH's about to tag a stop loss. Love being here together with everyone. Platinum. Let's pull up a chart and zoom out a little. And that's not the chart I want to show you. That's more of the dynamics. This is the chart, and you can see been consolidating here for a massively long time in the green. You could see that major breakdown during the lockdowns. Got everything at that particular point in time. Obviously, got completely wrecked. But more importantly, look at the yellow trend line break after that massive consolidation, finally breaking out. Now, we also saw a recent nuclear initiative. I don't know if it was an executive order. I don't know if it was a bill. I don't remember, but just passed last week by the Trump administration. And we got some dynamics to take a look at over here. Supply constraints. Market is experiencing significant supply deficits. In 2025, the WPIC projects a deficit of approximately 848,000 ounces, making the third year in a row of undersupply. Shortfall is attributed to a 5% year over year declining mining output. So demand is going up. Mining output so far has been on decline, particularly from South Africa, which accounts for a substantial portion of global production. Boom. What else do we got? What is platinum used for? EVs. Massive push, really led by China. I hear China's EVs are pretty spectacular. I think, and I understand that a lot of people are happy with Teslas. I don't think a lot of people are happy with Elon. I think you got half of the US market who really does not is not a fan. And then now it seems anyway, green energy transition, solar panels, obviously. You need the silver. I was talking about silver. Sorry. So also, platinum plays a crucial role in green technology, hydrogen fuel cells, investment demand. Um, look, is now the time to play. Is now the time to be looking at platinum with the big push, especially here uh, towards more of a new. Listen, a lot of people are speculating that that platinum could be headed towards $3,000 an ounce. I could see from the technicals. We just looked at that massive trend line break. We love trend line breaks. You could see the massive base put in. It looks attractive. Is it the most attractive out there? Is it going to outperform Bitcoin? I think that's the one question that's really important to ask. And let's go ahead and so I think a lot of investors personally have like the massive run that platinum put in during the early 2000s still imprinted in their psyche and minds, and they're looking for a similar move. Let's say that we were to see uh let's project by the year 2030 that it was able to reach a target of $3,000 an ounce, right? Do you think there's a chance that Bitcoin is going to be able to also put in, let's call it a 200% return by 2030? I personally think that the appreciation of Bitcoin is going to be much greater. I I personally believe that. Um, we'll keep tracking. We'll find out. I mean, let's take a look here at what's going on with Ethereum. We'll start by just looking at the chart. And so, I mean, what's funny about these lines over here is that the last time that we looked at this was like somewhere in April. We had drawn the double black diamond, the black diamond, and the conservative. Then we looked at this chart again. Now we took a really nice mechanical trade on this. We closed mid double digit profits. It was a fantastic take, and we were able to participate in that very well. But this was some discretionary CTM 1.0 trend lines over here, and since that we continue to consolidate very nicely. So I remember we were looking at gold with the RSI. RSI significantly greater over here. It's been pulling back during this consolidation. I have to say that why like so far is really good looking chart. Um Pausing here to just kind of think, right? Yeah, I don't have much else I don't have much else to add over here. We're it could break either way. We're consolidating. I don't know. I'm going to try a couple of different things. I don't think this is correct like that. I mean, it's hard to deny. There's so much going on over here. That's hard to deny. Then I'm also looking at, is this a slight uptrend like this? That could very also well be in play. And is that, just bear with me. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to figure out what exactly I see, except for a massive technical breakout. Is that the reason I did that was I had the structure, like these lines, these upward sloping lines. These are the structure of Ethereum. So I was trying to like see, is this channel along the lines of structure? What would be a major breakdown on Ethereum at this point? And could I say that like even if we were to come back and test the breakout of this trend line. Remember Bitcoin in March 2023? It sure did that on its bull market breakout. It did the same thing, came all the way back down during the banking crisis and tested this perfectly before then breaking out. Look, there's not much to say. It looks good here, except for the fact that Fed is still tightening, and we're still running quantitative tightening, balance sheet runoff. Generally, not the best time for Ethereum. Uh, Look, this is why the mechanical is the best. It will keep you on the right side. And I think I was looking over there. Let's come back over here and speaking of mechanicals, right? So close along pending here. What's will it hold the trade by the next signal period 7 hours from now? Will it take a full stop loss or just exit? Remains to be seen. We're consolidating, and ultimately this consolidate, you can see it flipping on and off right now, is going to ultimately come to a conclusion. We'll either be positioned back long on the breakout, or we'll be standing on the sidelines if this were to break down. It's very, like, you could hear my hesitancy. There's nothing clear there. So that's what I'm going with. Um Cardano, we got a nice hedge going on. You might have saw at the beginning of the stream, the short size from a review we're doing was clicked on Solana. So you could see that that's also it. We only trade on the buy side here. But it's an indication though that momentum is shifting when you see first Cardano short and then potentially Solana getting ready to trigger short as well. We currently have a nice hedge going on with Cardano short the market. Ethereum is long, getting ready to potentially close that. You see that Nvidia is long the market and it's got a very tight stop loss. That's currently in play. Tesla exited with a break even here this morning after being up roughly 14%. You don't like to see it. It's what happened. And then Tesla under a lot of pressure. And then TQQQ is still holding position 10% into profit. So I was looking at gold over here with you, and just to circle back for one moment, why the chart is up. And is that a big technical breakdown to watch out for if we were to break in that trend line over here? Um, Look, I still hope the opportunity arises to get the opportunity to position in much lower. The RSI on the monthly is extraordinarily oversold. I'm not completely convinced that we're going to see any type of clarity with the trade deals between the U.S. and all its trading partners on the timeline that the administration first looked out for. And that suggests if that doesn't happen, that gold here still has more potential upside. But eventually, I mean, I think that eventually we're going to see some resolution. And at that point in time, right, that might offer the opportunity for those that are patient to get a better opportunity into gold. Oh, my charts are off too many. You're only allowed 50. So there we are. There we are. So CTM, I think that's where we are for today, right? Loved being here, going through all this with you. But you know what? Tomorrow's not fun payroll. We're gonna wait. We're gonna take it from there. We'll be back at it tomorrow. For now, we are just allocating around momentum until we finally see some type of big wave that continues to run. Everyone, have a beautiful day. God bless you, CTM. Thanks for being here. I'll see you all later. Yeah, Ace, I'm gonna stop over there and jump down to that channel you're just talking about on Ethereum. I'm gonna zoom out over here, get rid of the RSI, and So is that ultimately a liquidity grab? I know that chart looks very funny for those that are following from afar, but you could see the highlighted channel, right? And this was resistance on the breakout of Ethereum's bull run in 2021. It entered into this channel and then it tested it during the low of the bear market. June 2022 had been the low, and then it was maintained. Look, it came back into the midpoint of the channel. That's ultimately where it peaked, and now it came back down outside of that bull channel. We're back in it now. Was that nothing more than a liquidity grab? And is Ethereum now headed towards? We don't know. We don't know. I mean, the potential exists. It's bullish. It's back in the channel. If this is a liquidity grab, there's going to be a lot of more upside, but so much depends on the macro. And the next 3 to 9 months are incredibly clouded and uncertain. And that is the dynamic that we're in. All right, everyone. I'll see you all back now on the inside. Have a beautiful day. God bless you.